Dark Souls is one of the most popular games of all time, garnering a huge fan base, spawning an entire franchise and style of games. Dark Souls is a spiritual successor to the 2009 Demon's Souls. Dark Souls isn't just an icon through its popularity, but Dark Souls has been heralded as one of the greatest games of all time. That is an exclusive club. Dark Souls has been given countless awards, and Hidetaka Miyazaki became a household name. When I first bought Dark Souls, I was looking for a game that would kick my teeth in. I was getting bored of all these easy games, and I wanted something that would give me a sense of accomplishment. Okay, that was a total lie. The only reason I bought it is because I wanted to show my friends that I had a bigger dick than them. So I bought all 3 Dark Souls games, and once I played and finished all of them, I found experiences that were so magical, so intricate, and so masterful. But Dark Souls became my pick for Game of the Decade last year. That is extremely high praise. A game that I thought would be nothing but a hefty challenge ended up helping me cope with suicidal depression and become one of my favorite video games of all time. That is also an exclusive club. Dark Souls is a game I tried to cover when this channel was really small. I wanted to make a proper critique on Dark Souls for about a year now, and I just haven't been able to properly address this masterpiece, and I downright disrespected it by posting an abysmal piece of work that was completely and utterly disgusting. I am ashamed that I made that video, because my editing skills were awful back then. Now that I've become more skilled in editing, I thought now would be appropriate to finally retrospect Dark Souls. Please, go share this around, because I really need you to. Guys, I am depending on you to give my channel more exposure, because I need people to watch my content if you want me to continue. Because if this video gets 1,000 views, I will sing Bad Romance by Lady Gaga. I promise, if this video gets 1,000 views, I will do that. Also, or if I get 100 subscribers, I will also sing Bad Romance. So just keep that in mind. Alright, let's get to it. I'm popping my Dark Souls cherry at last. Just a warning, there are a metric fuck ton of spoilers, and trust me, you do not want any of these games spoiled for you. So go buy them and play them first and then come back. Don't worry, this video will always be here. You don't have to watch it right now. But if you don't care about spoilers, then watch away. Dark Souls gives you a very lackluster character creation screen, with very limited hairstyles that all look like shit. And there is no facial hair. Why were character creations from 2011 so awful? But that is just the tip of the iceberg. At least the classes you can pick are all different. I chose to go with the Wanderer class for this playthrough. I decided to try a magic build since I had never done that before. But as I was saying, this character creation is very limited, and I don't like it. If I had facial hair, I could excuse the hideous look of my characters. Dark Souls has an opening cutscene that is very informative. It builds up the 4 lords really well and shows us how the world came to be, how men became God. It shows us what happened in this world in an interesting way, and the decline of Lordran as a place. It tells us of the war between dragons and the lords killing off the dragons. We know we'll have to face these enemies later on, so it's nice to build that up. But you'd think that Dark Souls would be story-driven like Elder Scrolls, considering it's a Western action RPG. But Dark Souls is minimalistic, and it reminds me a lot of Metroid games, where the story is told mostly through subtext. I really enjoy this way of storytelling because it leaves most of the things up to interpretation. Dark Souls gives you the option on whether or not you want to give a shit, which is always good for replay value. I would rather learn about the world of Lordran on my own rather than having it force-fed to me, because most games nowadays need to have a story that little children can understand. Dark Souls is really rich in lore, and people are so interested that it feels a YouTube channel with 1.4 million subscribers. So I think it's easy to say people are interested. Dark Souls has great characters with amazing quest lines that I haven't completed at all, but every character in this game has amazing voice acting. When characters say stuff, it can fly right over your head. Dark Souls has extremely memorable characters, Solaire being a fan favorite. Solaire seems to be the only optimistic person in this dying world, and he's pretty jovial and friendly all things considered. Everybody in this world is just insane, eccentric to the point of scaring me, or just straight up assholes. The Crestfallen Warrior is a prime example of this. He taunts you, laughs at you, and tells you that you won't succeed ringing the bells of awakening. The Crestfallen Warrior sits at the Firelink Shrine and gives gives newbies advice. When you ring the bells of awakening and prove that you are the chosen undead, the crestfallen warrior becomes obsolete because Kingseeker Frampt guides you from there on out. This leads him into a state called hollowing, where a person will lose their sanity and fall into their dread and darkest fears. They lose themselves and end up hollow. Hollowing is a concept I fucking adore. Hollowing can be seen as a metaphor for depression, because when you lose your purpose in the world, you get depressed. Hollowing in Lordran is something every character fears, and some do their best to avoid it, and they end up going insane from that. The merchant atop of Sen's fortress is a great example of this. The more times you visit him in different periods of the game, his dialogue changes and mimics that of a confused, insane person. It's genuinely unsettling. Other characters such as Siegmeyer of Katarina are really cool. You help him at every turn, which robs him of the adventure he craves, and he ends up hollowing, where another fellow Katarina knight has to lay him to rest when he hollows. I'm not even joking, this actually happens if you carry out the questline, which I don't have footage of because I didn't feel like getting depressed. No, I was just being lazy. Later in the game, Solaire keeps searching for the sun to guide him, but he ends up being brainwashed by some bugs in Lost Izalith, and you have to kill Solaire. This game takes away the only optimistic people in this depressing journey and shows you that there are no such things as happy endings, especially with the great Grey Wolf Sif and Knight Artorias. Artorias and Sif are fan-favorite characters as well, despite not saying a word at all. Artorias was taken over by the Abyss, and his loyal companion Sif tried to protect you from the Abyss that consumed his master, and you killed him for it. Dark Souls really puts my morals to the test. There is a morality system in the game, but it's not judged by some number. It's your own moral compass. You can kill almost anybody in Lordran, and the game won't change because of it. If you murder somebody, they're gone forever, and you can't change that. Dark Souls is grimdark as shit. It's bleak, it's depressing, and this game really shows you the harsh reality of real life. You kill the Chaos Witch Quelaag to ring the second bell of awakening, not knowing that her motivation was to collect humanity to heal her dying sister Quailana. Even at the start of the game, when Oscar saves you from your cell, he dies by the hands of the Asylum Demon and goes hollow from failing to save Lordran so many times. He asks you to fulfill his request by ringing the bells of awakening and saving Lordran. He freed you from your prison cell, so why not carry out his wish? Other characters like Griggs and Big Hat Logan are there to teach you sorceries, but when you learn everything from them, they go to the Duke's archives to seek out new knowledge and end up going hollow. A pyromancer, Laurentius, is so captivated by a pyromancy from the Chaos Witch Quailana that you can show him, that he travels to Blighttown, but he cannot find Quailana, and his search for powerful pyromancy drives him to hollowing. Knight Lautrec of Karim is driven by greed, and he ends up killing the Firelink Shrine Firekeeper for her humanity. Lautrec's only source of happiness was humanity, and yet again you kill him to restore flame at the Firelink Shrine. I can go on and on about these characters and how diverse they are. The same thing goes for the lords in Lordran. Seath the Scaleless was a dragon that betrayed his own kind to assist Lord Gwyn in the battle against other dragons. Pinwheel is a family fused together through necromancy, and they contorted into a mound of flesh beneath the robes, and they use masks to hide their grotesque figures. They all bring meaning to the story, and I fucking love them. In Lordran, there are no happy endings. Dark Souls has meaning for the things in its world. An interesting thing I heard was that the item descriptions in-game are the player character's thoughts, which makes things more interesting when you look at it that way. Dark Souls is much like a complex piece of art. It takes a close mind to understand what the fuck it's trying to say and what's going on. You're never really railroaded in this game at all. It's just you, your weapons, and the challenges ahead. Dark Souls is very minimalistic, and there's not much of an ongoing story, and all the stuff I stated earlier was completely optional. You don't have to carry out any of these quest lines. All of you have to do is just ring the 2 bells of awakening and collect the Lord Souls and deliver them to the Firelink altar beneath the shrine. Dark Souls reminds me a lot of the old school game design of the past, with the new area, new enemies, and then the big boss, and then on to the next area. It's a very old school structure and reminds me a lot what you would see in the older Zelda games, but I think Dark Souls has more in common with Metroid than Zelda. Dark Souls is a huge interconnected world that you travel through all by yourself. Everything in Dark Souls is connected, not just the map, but in everything else, like spells, weapons, and items. They all piece together to form a greater whole. Dying and respawning in this game isn't just a gameplay mechanic, it's part of the game's story, which is neat. You are an undead, branded with the dark sign, which means you are immortal, but not free from hollowing. Your Estus flask, or potions you can guzzle to regain health, are really flasks filled with fire, which heals you. In Dark Souls, everything in this world has an explanation, which is absolutely incredible, that somebody would take the time to make all this cohesive and logical. Dark Souls is a world that feels real, not just in its logic, but the level design complements this as well. Being atop the undead church and seeing Sen's Fortress off in the distance, then getting to Sen's Fortress and looking back at where you were not that long ago, in games seeing something way the fuck off in the distance and then getting there and looking back at where you were just feels so unreal. But Dark Souls keeps things interesting with unique level design. Me personally, I love the frightening heights of Blighttown. Seeing how high up you are is rather nauseating, and know that one wrong step is bound to get you killed. I love the treachery of Sen's Fortress and how one mistake is enough to send you falling to the ground. Sen's Fortress is really well designed, and the lack of visible bonfires is frightening. Speaking of bonfires, they are really well placed in the first act of the game, but in the third act, they are a little too scarce. But the one in Sen's Fortress is really well hidden and placed right where it should be. There are plenty of hazards here, and it makes the journey dangerous. You can unlock a shortcut that takes you right down to the bottom of Sen's Fortress. Once you conquer Sen's Fortress, you're taken upwards to see what's on the other side of the wall. This is an Orlando, an area perfectly introduced with excellent camera pans, and the music is exciting yet mysterious, which gets you pumped to explore this new area. An Orlando is really challenging, not just because the boss of the area, but the enemies are really strong as well. Which the Silver Knights are easy to parry if you parry things like I do, but the archers on the side of the chapel are really dangerous. They have killed players so many times because the arrows will knock you off over the edge and you will fall to your death. And Orlando has plenty of intense situations when traveling through the rafters, but despite these fantastic areas in Dark Souls, there are a few shitty areas, mainly the ones past in Orlando. Everything just becomes a massive pain in the ass. Yeah, I like the Demon Ruins and Lost Izalith when it comes to their visual design, but their level design just feels flat out lazy with retarded enemy placements. The Duke's Archives has not one, but two fucking armored boars guarding the entrance. These enemies are challenging enough. I think one is fine. The Duke's Archives also feels really copy and pasted, which isn't good and makes the game tedious. New Londo Ruins was cool though. It was chilling how the docile hollows are praying at the edge of the pass. They look to be suffering some sort of torment. But once again, there are 0 bonfires in New Londo Ruins, meaning you have to travel all the fucking way to the Four Kings from the Firelink Shrine. This isn't making the game challenging, it's making it frustrating and tedious. Like the Crystal Caves in the Duke's Archives. Fuck, if you died to Seath the Scaleless here, you have to travel all the way to his boss arena to fight him again. Thank God he is not that difficult. Tomb of the Giants is where I started getting frustrated, because it's dark as hell to even see where I was going. I had to swap my shield for a lantern, and when I could see it's when enemies came to my view and massacred me. Lost Izalith and Demon Ruins gave me a headache, not because of the enemy placements, but because the brightness of the damn lava. Now that I'm thinking about it, everything past in Orlando was frustrating and not very fun. I just wanted to get my playthrough over that I forgot to go through the depths and fight the Gaping Dragon. I also didn't feel like doing the DLC because I was exhausted from the base game. Well, as much as I like the level design in Dark Souls, it ends up getting a little too frustrating and can be annoying. Dark Souls can also get annoying with its PvP because you can get invaded at some random intervals. What's an invasion? Basically, it's some asshole deciding, how am I gonna fuck up somebody's day? I hate this shit because most of the time I'm going up against somebody who is probably way better at the game than I am, and they get me into stun locks and they fucking kill me every single invasion. Good thing I don't keep much humanity stocked up on me, so the invaders don't get much when they kill me. But what about the bosses in Dark Souls? Each of them are large, in charge, and aggressive as fuck. As much as I like these bosses, there are a couple of lame ones, because there are not 1, not 2, but 3 motherfucking reskins. Overkill anyone? The Asylum Demon, the Stray Demon, and the Demon Fire Sage. Man, there sure are a lot of demons in this game. Maybe it should have been called Demon Souls. Oh, right. Seriously, fuck the Stray Demon. I was exploring the undead asylum on the second journey and I fall through the floor like a goddamn Home Alone trap. Also, fuck the demon fire sage. He has a massive boner for using his AoE attacks and that gets annoying. There are difficulty stages in this game when it comes to the bosses. It starts you off with the asylum demon, who is there to teach you the basic mechanics. The second stage, the Bell Gargoyles, who are there to teach you of a boss that is more than one enemy, and is the first true wall of the game. Then there's the famous Ornstein and Smo battle. This is the real wall of Dark Souls. This is the hardest boss in the game for a good reason. Not only is Ornstein fast and is able to knock you down, but Smo comes along to smash you with this giant hammer. This fight truly tests your patience and skill. I think soloing bosses in Dark Souls is really enjoyable, for the most part, but the Lord Soul bosses are just average. Sif is a great boss, and genuinely is a depressing fight when you put enough damage down on him. He starts limping around the arena. It sucks in stories when the animal has to die, but it sucks even more when you're the one that has to kill the animal. The Four Kings is my favorite of the Lord Soul bosses. This fight has an arena that can kill you instantly, and it is scary as hell. Not only are the kings fast, have high health bars, but the fact that there is more than one of them, the utter blackness makes it difficult to gauge your surroundings. This makes the boss even more stressful. Four Kings are a really well designed boss for this reason. I was not a fan of Seath the Scaleless. Yeah, he had a unique weakness, but the fact that this boss could curse you was fucking irritating. And if you died to him, even if he was lacking a challenge, you had to venture all the way through the crystal caves. This is my big issue with the game, is traveling for 2 minutes to get to a boss. Take the Ornstein and Smo journey from the Anor Londo bonfire. Oh yeah, you have to travel that far. You think getting to Seath won't be that bad? Well, look at this! Oh my god, the Tomb of the Giants is even worse! Because you have to travel through all of this darkness and get ambushed and gang raped by giant skeleton dogs. And then get another attempt. Gravelord Nito as a boss sucks. I don't like it because it's such a clusterfuck. You know a boss sucks when it has to have minions in the arena to make it more challenging. Oh man, this thing, the Bed of Chaos, my ass was puckered the whole time through. It could sweep you off the floor with its giant Groot fingers, but thank God this boss doesn't reset when you die, because that would be insanely frustrating. I died 4 times to this asshole in my playthrough, and all deaths were completely out of my control. The floor breaks out from under you, and a platforming boss in a game that is not a platformer is unacceptable. There is another boss called... Wait, what the fuck? Ceaseless Discharge? Gross! This douchebag has really bad hitboxes, and it also doesn't help that his name literally means unending relief of load. Blah! This guy is relieving his load all over you. Oh, I'm sorry, I just can't take this guy seriously. Oh man, Capra Demon fight is just, so fucking stupid. You have about 2 seconds once you enter this tiny ass arena before you get butt fucked. I hate this boss. Even though these bosses may not be perfect, even the ones like Pinwheel that are pathetically easy, or the ones like the Bed of Bullshit that are cheap as hell, they still introduce a new layer of terror and fear in an already hostile world, and I think that is pretty important. Gameplay? Dark Souls has some of the most unique gameplay I've ever seen in an action RPG. Most games of a similar vein to Dark Souls have combat that isn't very realistic, and characters can swing big-ass swords faster than the speed of light. But in Dark Souls, even the lightest of weapons take a bit to swing. Dark Souls is slow and methodical. You have to manage everything within that little green bar below your health, which is your stamina. Everything you do other than walking requires stamina. There is a lot of weight to your character's movements, from how you walk, dodge roll, and swing weapons. Nothing is instantaneous. Things require a wind-up. You have to carefully plan in this game when you attack and defend, and if you fuck up, you're left open to counterattack, which will happen quite often. The controls in this game are a bit weird, but it's not often when I play a game like this where the shoulder buttons are used for light and heavy attacks, as well as blocking and parrying, and the face buttons are used for item consumptions. I got used to it very quickly, and found it to be very intuitive. In the original release of Dark Souls, jumping was pretty weird. You have to get a running start to make a jump, so you have to hold the sprint button and get a running start, and then press the sprint button again to make the leap. Thank God you can change it in the remastered version of the game to a more convenient button. Wrestling with the camera in this game gets fucking irritating, but I'm glad the game attempts to keep the camera to your back when you're locked onto an enemy. It also struggled to stay locked onto enemies that move around a lot, and for bosses like Sif, you can get frustrated not knowing where the doggo with the big ass sword is. Nothing is more frustrating than getting juggled in these games and not have any control. In Dark Souls, there is an equipment load on how many items you can have equipped at one time. The heavier the armor and items are, the slower you'll move, and trust me, you do not want to be fat rolling in this game. I usually mid-roll during my playthroughs because I like to have decent defense while being able to tank a few hits. I will say that playing a magic build, you can absolutely rape everything, and especially when it comes to PvP. Magic builds can destroy fucking anything. I also don't like how in this game you can't roll diagonally from enemies, because there are some bosses where staying to the right of them is an ideal strategy, but it's tough to execute due to the lack of omnidirectional rolling. When you try to roll out of an enemy's attack but end up rolling into it, it can get fucking annoying. Despite these few blemishes, I think the combat system is pretty good. But I do think this game is fair despite its overwhelming difficulty. Yeah, there are a few things you cannot see coming, and some things just freak out on you and can get you killed, which can get aggravating. But you are rarely surrounded by multiple enemies in this game, but when you are, you usually have the ability to escape. But you shouldn't let yourself get swarmed in the first place. Dark Souls is really difficult, and can get frustrating at points, but I don't think it's unfair, unless we're talking about the Bed of Chaos or the Capra Demon. What do you get after all of that? After slaying every beast in Lordran? What do you get after escaping the Undead Asylum, ringing the bells of awakening in the Undead Parish in Blighttown? What do you get after gazing upon the magnificence of an Orlando and acquiring the Lord Vessel? What do you get after killing the mightiest beasts in Lordran and acquiring the Lord Souls? What do you find on the other side of that gate? Ash, a bleak sunset, and a fading flame. At the end of your journey, you encounter what was once a man with the weight of the world on his shoulders. It's time to put Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder, to rest. So after laying Gwyn to rest, do you save Lordran, or do you turn it to dark? That's for you to decide. Dark Souls is an incredible achievement, not just on FromSoftware, but this game will go down in video game history as one of the greatest video games of all time. Dark Souls is a beautiful piece of art, and I would recommend it to anybody who loves video games, but the same cannot be said for Dark Souls 2. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I was finally able to cover Dark Souls how I wanted to. Anyways, my milestone, if this video gets 1,000 views, or if I get 100 subscribers, I will sing Bad Romance by Lady Gaga. No, I'm not just gonna, sing the song in front of the camera. I'm gonna make my own freaking remix, I'll take the instrumental of the song and put my vocals over where Lady Gaga's would be. So I know, and that would be really embarrassing on my part, but if you guys want to see me embarrass the hell out of myself, click that subscribe button, share this video around. It doesn't matter where you share this video. Share it on Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, just anywhere, any social media platform. It doesn't matter. Share this video around. My channel needs more exposure. I want people to watch my content because that's why I make YouTube videos. So anyways, I will see you all in the next video when I cover Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. Thank you all for watching. This has been Skeptical Rowan. Peace out.